Hi everybody, good afternoon. Welcome to the Humanities in Session series. I'm very pleased to see you all here. Today is super special as we will be engaging Dr. Uhuru Phalafala's work, the book Mine, Mine, Mine. When we were talking and emailing back and forth, discussing about the session, I was thinking about this as a kind of curation, and I kind of want to sit with that a bit more, a kind of live installation, if you want, as we journey together this afternoon. So I'll do some introductions, and then I'll open it up with some thoughts, and then I'll have a musical moment, and then Uhuru will take over. And then after that, we'll have a short discussion, and then we'll open it up for everybody. So, as you all know, my name is Luando Scott, and I am a senior researcher, newly minted, at the Center for Humanities Research. Yes, and our guest here today at Ziba Labs is, as I said, Dr. Uhuru Phalafala, who is a senior lecturer in English literature at Stellenbosch University. She teaches African literature, world literatures, transnational black feminism, black diasporic literatures, black consciousness, and black power poetry, transnationalism in the 20th century, life writing, African and diasporic poetry, world literatures, black expressive cultures that include the spoken word, poetry, jazz, hip-hop, reggae, focuses on cultural studies, African and diasporic intellectual traditions, and her work also focuses on the Black Literary Archive. Uhuru is the author of Geopoetics, and the Black Arts Movement Poetics of Possibility. You can see it right there, published in 2024. She's also the co-editor of Geopoetics Collected Poems, 1969 to 2008. I think they're all published by Nebraska. Yeah. Of course, she's the author of the book that's under discussion today, Mine, Mine, Mine. So before we begin, I would like to thank Ben for making the introductions. He's not here. Between Uhuru and I, enabling this connection to take place. Although we had seen each other before, it was Ben's email that kind of kicks things off. I'd like to thank Michaela and Simone and others at the CHR for making this possible. So, as I've said, we're engaging Uhuru's Mine, 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 which really is a tour de force of a book, making us think about the makings of South Africa, making us reckon with how the discovery of minerals in this part of the world sets off a chain of events, unprecedented change to people's lives, events that Uhuru's Mine, Mine, Mine deals with in such an intimate yet monumental way. So Uhuru's Mine, Mine, Mine also makes us feel, I think, right in reading this book, I got into my feels, to use contemporary lingua franca. I imagine that in the course of this afternoon, at some point, if not all afternoon, we will have to talk about affect. So in conceptualizing today, driven by the force of Uhuru's words, sentences and phrases, I thought the only way to begin today was through the sonic. Not only is the sonic weaved through the text of Mine, 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 in that Uhuru's writing is lyrical. Just like a musician, she wraps emotion in a lyric throughout the book. The sonic is referenced throughout the book also through the important works of our contemporary songbird, Simphiwe Dana, and the referencing of the legendary Miriam Makeba, amongst a number of other sonic references. So of course, as many of you know, the sonic also plays an important role in the life of miners in Johannesburg, who have given us songs that some people would call South African standards, right? Like Shosholoza. And of course, we know that this song has played an important role in the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa and remains the fuel of contemporary social movements. So the sonic, I think, is a good place for us to begin. And here, I think my own education of South Africa, of my own education of South Africa's gold mines comes through the sonic. Here I'm thinking of the sounds of Stompie Mavi, who sang the song Teba. I was young when this song came out, but it was ubiquitous, and no self-respecting tavern jukebox was complete without it. Tepa was a white man that Stompie Mavi sang about. He was a horrible man, according to all accounts, and not to be trusted. Because as Stompie Mavi sang, lo mlungu Tepa ndiyamzonda ngoba uthatha isandwa sam andisoze ndiye eGoli. Uzobathuthe loliwe andisoze ndiye eGoli. Translation: this white man, I truly despise him because he took away my love. In the chorus he says, the train will take them, but I will never go to Johannesburg. In the song, Stompie Mavi laments that Tepa, the white man, has taken his lover, but his refrain in the song remains, I will never go to Johannesburg. Tepa here stands for the migrant labor system that takes people to Johannesburg, and in many cases they never come back. It is the lamentation of a heartbreak, but also a defiant stance, that those who want to go may go and take the train, and the train will take them, but he will not be going anywhere. While I listened to this song as a kid, it is only, of course, on later years that I understood what Stompie was talking about, and understood his hatred for Tepa, and why he swears he will never go to Johannesburg. The song I'm about to play, because I'm about to play a song now, is not Stompie Mavi. But it's a different song. But a song I think nonetheless all of you know, and of course captures the history of the mines and the aftermath of the discovery of minerals, particularly for the lives of men, which is the visible part of the mining world. But of course, as Uhuru's Mine demonstrates, there are others, women, where there has been a long silence of the impact of the migrant labor system on their lives, and how this system continues to haunt gendered relations in post-apartheid South Africa. This song has meaning for many of us in this room, perhaps different meanings, but meanings nonetheless. And perhaps it will stir us to have an enriching and fruitful conversation. So we'll start there, and then I'll give over to you, Uhuru.
I promise you, Londo did not tell me he's gonna play that song. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Uhuru Phalafala, and I am the author of this book, Mine, Mine, Mine. It chronicles my grandfather's journey as a miner working in the gold mines of Johannesburg, where he was a migrant laborer. We are from Limpopo. And so he would be gone to Egoli, City of Lights, Johannesburg, for 11 months and 2 weeks of the year to come home and visit us for 2 weeks during Christmas. This is the story of my grandfather. It is the story of our grandfathers, our fathers, our brothers, our uncles. It is also the story of our grandmothers who were left behind, our mothers who birthed us, our sisters. And mine is mine, but it is also ours. We begin with an epigraph. Can you hear me just fine? In 2018, a historic silicosis class action lawsuit against the mining industry in South Africa was settled in favor of the miners. Footnote: the miners are dead. Bringing legality into matters of state versus property reproduces colonial violence. How about land? What about white capital? What about black overlords? Some are still buried under mine shafts. An unpayable debt, no favor. An incalculable catastrophe explored in 6 movements. Movement 1, Le Karapa. My grandfather is dead. He was vomiting blood, my mother says. Lungs contaminated by history, brimming full with mine dust. He left, went. He was always away, always leaving. A migrant laborer. Missed his first child's birth, his second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. When I last saw him, he asked my mother, "Who is this fine young man?" My mother corrected him tenderly. "She's your granddaughter, Papa." He must have been washed with shame, triggered, haunted till his last days by the recurrence of that question. Each time he came home once a year for Christmas, presented with a newborn, an infant, a toddler. "And who is this fine little baby?" "She is your daughter. He is your son." Rahulu, did you have to kick your heart shut when you met your stranger children? These young babes with open mouths and fledgling hearts? Did you search their faces looking for your eyes? Did they feel a gulf in your heart, broad with longing and love? Or did you feel like a stranger father to them? Distance and time informing your self-preservation. Did your heart harden like scab on a wound? How did you preserve the memories of these people, this stranger family of yours, when you were baking in Earth's womb, feverish with yearning, miscarrying all dreams of kin and family? At what point, with no photograph, no letter, no visitation, did your heart, your manhood, collapse into itself and give up dreams of fatherhood, of community, husband, uncle, brother, grandfather as the months and the years unravel, sludging forth with cruel hope? At what point did you down tools of digging and drilling and mining futures where you are reunited permanently with your blood? Was it after the 6th Union strike when mine slopes collapsed and buried your brothers alive? Some under 20 years old, young bulls in their prime, locked in the pits of gold. Was it then that you saw death, unmarked, unrecorded, unceremonious, that you clearly understood your insignificance? When your demands for a pay raise or better living conditions or rights to have your wives visit the city were laughable and met with scorn? Was it the message from the Chamber of Mines that made it blood-curdling clear? Any miner who goes on strike shall be permanently banished to their homeland and their hard taxes quadrupled. Failure to pay will be punishable by death. Social death, communal death, familial death. Rahulu, did you dread coming home? Did you dread coming home to searching eyes and hearts, to strangers who were once kin, to impotent excitement and dreary celebrations, where your lungs already have failed? Could you breathe? Did Christmas become a vicious test of faith? Did the birth of Christ bring melancholy and shame? His first breath mocking your shallow breathing, taunting your collapsing diaphragm? Did you wish for death in the silent night, to be lowered permanently in the tomb of the earth, tightly mummified to avoid any resurrection? Movement 2, Muletelo. A vicious modernity disfigures black maternity, turns black women's wombs into factories producing blackness, wombs of profit and prophets, birth canal strengthening GDP, ushering children into non-status, non-being, black women's birth canals, domestic middle passages, forced to deliver sons into the mind tomb of the state, a dehumanizing project that traps mothers into obligatory reproduction to honor capitalist duties, to honor patriarchs, widows with living husbands, birthing sorrow and longing, youthful hearts gorged by grief under patriarchal oath of silence. We do not speak of our heartbreak, the depression, the inability to breathe, the lustful nights, the desire for flight, the floundering dreams of the city of lights, the unspoken rights to partake in the gold. We shall forget the newborn, the ones we buried and never talk about, the tongues we had to swallow in our mourning, trailed with blood stains of a memory. We shall master silence and forgetting, grieving but not crying, rotating between pregnant and breastfeeding, grieving a miscarriage and pregnant, breastfeeding after a miscarriage, grieving a stillbirth while pregnant, bleeding a miscarriage while breastfeeding, pregnant, grieving, miscarrying, grieving infertility after stillbirth, breeding, feeding, bleeding, breastfeeding a stillborn while grieving a miscarriage, grieving postnatal breeding. Ki motswetsi ki mile ki a hloboga. Ki mile ki a hloboga ki motswetsi. Ke motswetsi wa go tlhoka setswetsi. Motswetsi wa go tlhoka lesea. Not waving, but drowning. Grieving, birthing boys that become prophet. Hating love that grieves the heart. Closing heart against willful abduction. Grieving husbands who become profitable boys. Grieving stillbirth in the stillness of longing. Lasting, lasting, lasting grief in the breastfeeding of profitable boys. Miscarrying orgies of postnatal gross domestic loss. Do not cry, do not cry. We do not talk about those things. Do not cry. Grieving, but not crying. In 1961, my grandmother went to the City of Lights with her husband, lodging hidden in the crevices of the cold compounds. The matriarchs orchestrated the visit. She wasn't ovulating when he was home. A mule with a practical agenda, 2 weeks tops. But the iciness of the city bonded their flesh longer. In the middle of the night, a raid. Goo, 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 goo. Knock, knock, knock. Hide behind the curtain of history. Quick. Hide behind the curtain of history. Under the blanket of white terror. Hey boy, what's this kafir bitch doing here? She doesn't have a permit. Sorry, boss. Sorry. Hey bitch, this is not bloody Gazankulu. Don't look at me when I talk to you. Boy, does your wife know you play with whores in this shack of yours? Please, sir. She's my wife and our child just died and we are grieving. Listen to this kafir acting white. Oh, my child just died. I want her gone before the sun comes out. And they were gone. Leaving a flame of shame, licking clean all affection, bringing the weight of history to crush their disposable lives. Do not cry, Skalla, we don't talk about those things. Do not cry. Movement 3, Magolwa. Police, pester, pedestrian for passes, dumpas, my life, my wife, hungry hand comes back with nothing from the rear pocket. Where is your pass, boy? Now I ride in the kwela. Heavy air, massive with song and solidarity, moments of clamoring clarity. Amandla awethu, mayibuye iAfrika. In jail, we eat political education and wash it down with revolution amidst rats, cockroaches and ticks. In the mines, we get shorn like black sheep. The prisons shave us like disease-infested infidels. Our lungs are filled with silicosis in the mines. We are asphyxiated in the prisons, lungs riddled with tuberculosis. We cannot breathe. Drowning in the blood of tortured comrades who fell from the 9th floor by slipping on a piece of soap while washing, by hanging on the 9th floor while slipping, white lies infiltrating radioactive waves of international press. The natives are restless, says one headline, while prisoners' heads are in the firing line, my grandfather towing the line of secretly throwing black fists in the air while playing docile, drilling the gold standard of white monopoly. America, America, arbiter of morality, enemy of dirty communists, assisting apartheid, apprehend and assassinate black anti-racist activists through severe surveillance, Gaza, and perverse alliances to subdue revolution. Jim Crow and apartheid sitting in a tree. K-I-L-L-I-N-G. Apartheid and Thatcher sitting in a tree. K-I-S-S-I-N-G. French kissing federal intelligence, building iron curtains with our gold, intercepting and infiltrating insurrection, chasing imagined red peril and rooi gefars. We will protect our right to pillage Africa for natural resources by any means necessary. Trample them with the might of our first world. We are America. These kafirs and niggers don't know the real cost of the civilization they enjoy. We will crush any savage and barbarian who wants to stop progress. You can count on us, Verwoerd. We locked away that terrorist Sobukwe. We provided intel for Lily's Leaf farm raid, where those bloody savages and nigger lovers thought they could bring the Algerian revolution to South Africa. They will rot in jail, sir. They will rot in jail. Yeah, abelungu. Abelungu. Abelungu, God damn. Abelungu, God Damn, abelungu, God. Damn, basibiza abujim. Basibiza abujim. Abelungu, God. Damn, abelungu, God. Damn, abelungu, God. Damn, basibiza abujim. Basibiza abu bags. Abelungu, God. Damn, abelungu, God. Damn. Mississippi, God damn. Movement 4. Black Rage in Swallow. Mam Docas, Queen Pin of the Reef, owner of herself and many a man, curtailing many legislation, skirting fictions of the state, shifting means of production to her backyard and turning shack into palace of dreams where revolutions are made. A veritable compound of stars where hip identities are lived. Ma'auti, it Brenthood and Dopsy, relishing dops of mellowhood. Chalimingas serenading the day. Kipimweketsi flowering nightfall. Comrade poets reading banned literature or smuggling records, paintings and letters through Ausdokas Swaziland's connects. Tsotsis brandishing knife skills of Master Kiers, putting holes in miners' weekly pay and gashing flesh with a gambling impulse. Bevies of unbridled beauty, loud and intentional, excuse me, loud and intentional about their blackness, adorn the latest fashion, embellished in red Q-tex and leather figure belts, donning black power berets, a cacophony of cackles and reckless abandon, young lions crouching against feral surveillance, Sheila's day, an accession of full humanity, turning body of labor into body of leisure, claiming urban identities in night classes, hiding political training behind sewing and knitting, fashioning soft power behind the eye of the hurricane. Yes, revolutionary needlework. Ausmatsidiso, called Mary by her madam who loves dogs and tolerates Africans. Her home, an embattled zone of domestic surveillance, dutiful discipline, a daily routine, social warfare on black female body. Hateful mind bosses give white wives rights to prowl auction blocks and hire house slaves whom they rename. Matsidi so now gal, tea-gal, maid-gal. Faithful white women embrace white power and white wealth, wear sleeves of gold and cloak, white terror, kleptocracy, cocky pride, enjoying spoils of their men's exploits. Their husbands only see black women enduring enactments of male power, defile us in front of their wives in the refuge of their castles, cut our face with bones of their scorned rib cage, suckle their spawn Adam on the bleak bounty of our body, wetness against the aesthetic of their breast, to be pecker and firmer in richness and in health, for husband's tenderness after he's drained his violence in us. A lapse in judgment of momentary fall from grace, tempted by the devil with an insatiable appetite. White women call us whores. Black men call us whores, see us as sites of conquest that mock their shame, smack us in the face for getting hit by racing horse cuts of their masters, virile machine, weaponized. We, receipts of deceit in the seventh quarter, where Adam you suckled comes of age, in your threadbare linens, a rite of bus passage, historical master copy of the father's original sin, braiding the raiding of my grandmother's body with the fibroid of my daughter. Comrade Kwezi, sobered by the precarity of blackness, of living in the violence of a waiting room, joined the ranks of forces and jumped barbed wire fences into the heart of darkness, searching for light of liberation through comrade crocodile jaws, craving her tender flesh, fresh with raw desire. Recalling survival tips, she stabs him in the eye, but being in a movement where the one-eyed comrades are hailed as heroes in parades of strength and uniformed ceremonies of primordial social hierarchies, predatory sizing of the wilderness, blood of life and death, embroiling on the threshing floor of battlefield, biting and gasping trusted Kader, hitting his shrill weapon in the natural oven of the savannah, fighting for man's freedom and nationalization of the mines, mine, ownership paradigm exported from the auction block to unequal power relations of court rulings, using laws our rapists wrote to put our rapists on trial. Amandla away to Madod. Movement 6. Lefa la ntate ke mahloko le maswabi le boitsholo ba go fenywa ba go tlhabisa ditlhong ba go hloka mantswe ba go omisa leleme ba mo tsietse botho a sa phela, ba mo tsiela polelo a sa na le molomo, ba mo tsiela lentswe a sa na le leleme. Motho ke sera seo fela se re goge se rakaletswe se se na leleme se latlhe botho se tlhabane ka marumo. Our inheritance is deep disgrace, shame, silence and defeat that dries our mouths and leaves deserts in our souls. My grandfather's humanity was taken while he was alive. his language broken in his mouth, his tongue severed and buried. A human being is a beast that, when cornered and its tongue taken, throws away his humanity and fights ferociously with weapons. But who do you fight? A ring of fire bonds black women to dutiful fits of historical rage, unprocessed grief archived in the muscle of black men, outlet for centuries of exploitation, subjection, and breaking of black power, internalized brood, now fermenting toxic malignant masculinities, infecting black women, controlling their movements, disciplining and punishing them, burying them alive. Centenaries of vengeful agony, trapped in double stories of mine shafts homes, with evil layers of overseers, slopes kept from crashing on our backs, toiling in search of the shiny appearance, digging deep enough to bury our dreams, the forbidden deadly sin of pride. There can only be one bull in the kraal, suffocating, pleasure faking under the bull, glowing for promises of our covenant, of church hymns, amens and hymens, breaking back so he can rise, breaking hymen for his honor, breaking mouth for his status, breaking my name so he can possess me, breaking your body for my lineage, break your body for my children, breastfeed my children, don't breastfeed in public, fix your saggy breast to breastfeed me, climb ladders of success but don't pass me, make money but give it to me, doctor at the office, wife at home, CEO in the office, slave in my kitchen, make dombolo, make lasagna, don't wear waist beads unless on top of me, don't talk back to me, don't ask questions, don't take birth control, don't be pregnant again, don't have an abortion, why are you pregnant again, be a mother and a virgin, be a whore in my bed, be conservative and respectable, be adventurous for heaven's sake, kiss a girl, but only for my pleasure. Don't be a whore in my house. Restore your birth canal, be a virgin, be a mother, bleach your vagina and your face. I don't like makeup, I like tall dark dandies. Be a yellow bone Lupita. I hate to love you. I hate to hate you. I love to hate you. I hate hating me. I hate your heart. I hurt my heart. I hurt my hate. I hunger to howl. Help! I hurt. I hurt. I hurt. I hit a fit of hell and unhome my house of hunger, hollowed by heinous history unhinged. I hunt your hurt and hurt your heart, turn the hate on hanging my hollow home in cold blood, the horror. I hit my heart, habitually hurt my hate of hardship. It's hard. I hate my hurt. It hurts. It hurts. It's hard. It hurts. But did we die, though? Yes, we did die. Found salvation from whoredom and lascivious eyes of the master, salivating over harems on plantations and servant quarters. Black bodies on strike, self-immolate for transcendence. Out of the ruins and smolder of remarkable destruction, in the thick silence of starry darkness, the blackness of creation, a vision and a voice. Do not be afraid. You have found favor and redemption. Unto you daughters shall be born, with medicine for the lineage in the bones of their tongues. Yes, we did die. In the blackness of destruction and creation, we part our hips like the sea and birth ourselves. Use our mothers' names to sing our resurrection. Weave our purpose with gifts from 3 wise women who imprinted scriptures forged out of stardust and spectacular smithereens of our former selves into kilts of our hearts. Moonlight illuminates our new name. The dying wish of burning mouths, blazing in our bones, blossoming with revelations of our spirit supreme.
Thank you so much. Should we go home now?
Or to therapy.
Thank you so much for that, Uhuru. That was really, really amazing. Of course, I have a litany of questions, and some I've prepared, but some that just came now. Maybe I want to start from your beginning. Your grandfather, and in here you deal with absence, and really your grandfather, but really I want to have a conversation around absence, so your thoughts around. And absence comes back again and again and again in my mind. The absence of your grandfather. And I think that it's very powerful how you open up, because in a way there's a mourning of the death of your grandfather. But there's also a question of accounting. There's a desire for some kind of accounting, and accounting for absence. And when I read that first part of the book, I thought about fatherhood in South Africa. And I thought about in 2021, of more than 1 million births recorded, over 60% of the registered births didn't have fathers on them in this country. So this is from recorded live births in South Africa. This is a statistic captured by Statistics South Africa. So of course there are many reasons for this, right? This, history of fatherlessness, if you want. And of course part of it is linked to migratory labor practices. And I mean, under this question, there's lots of other smaller questions, but I wondered if we could get into this conversation through the absence, and through father absence.
Yes, absolutely apt. The opening movement is filled with questions that
don't necessarily get a response. It is the questions that I think signal exactly what you've just said. The question of, I guess the work deals with scales of concerns. So from the larger scales of, why do we not know this history? That's the question. That's like, there's a big question. Why do we not know the history of this foundation of Southern African modernity, the foundations of capitalism, racial capitalism in this part of the world that's tied to global capitalism? Why do we not know of this central site of analysis for our modernism? Where do we go to find that history? Thank you for playing you. We didn't plan it, he didn't tell me he's gonna play it, so I was completely taken by that because I was gonna begin with the cowbell. Why do we not know about this? There are many, the black proverb, I have many questions. We have many questions. There are a lot of questions, and some of them kind of open this collection. Questions that will not, may not, cannot be answered, and they all address themselves to an absence. Because at the heart of all of the systems that the collection addresses, colonialism, patriarchy, heteropatriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy, they are all about separation. At the heart of white supremacists, capitalists, heteropatriarchal capitalism is separating people, whether into binaries or dichotomies or hierarchies and so forth, and then creating that huge vacuum. And so I open with that. I have questions and they just remain questions, but they kind of come back again to inform a future where children might be asking, where is my father? Or wives wonder why their husbands are brutally violent or brutally absent while sitting right here in front of me, right? In Movement 1, I was just reading excerpts from the movements. In Movement 1, I get into ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss is a psychological state where you sense the loss of somebody while they're still alive.
Right.
And they're even present. They could be sitting right here, but you know they are absolutely not here. Or, at the same time, you can feel their presence while they are away. So it functions on two levels. My grandmother, being married, wives with living it's a social anomaly, so I struggle to even remember it. Widows with living husbands, right? So she's married, she has to carry herself like a wife throughout the year, throughout the years, throughout the decade, but her husband is never there. Right? That's ambiguous loss. And then when he eventually returns for these 2 weeks, he's absolutely hollowed out by his experiences that, by the way, he cannot even begin to share with anybody because they are spectacular in the Jabulo, in the relevance of the term. So yeah, absences function on those multiple levels, here but not here, and questions around that seem to fall into a vacuum, an echo chamber. And these questions keep coming up each generation, and they're tied to this moment. So the scale of the absence and the question happen at a domestic level, but it also happens, of course, at a national and continental level, at the domestic level, and also at the national experience of this history. It's there, but it's not there. Mining industry, there, but underground. All we see is yellow hills in Joburg. We don't question. It's an industry that's out of sight. It's underground. You could miss it. You certainly can't go visit. You can't. It's not a place you can just go check out. Even if you come and say, I'm doing this project, it's not that kind of place, right? So hidden but central, hidden but foundational, hidden but framing everything, right? So that's also like absence. And so absolutely absence is a big one at play.
I'll use this one. Okay. Part 1 is called A Litany of Loss. So, I mean, you just touched on it now too, reckoning with loss, right? Coming to terms with loss, looking at loss in the face. Loss is everywhere, of course, right? And as a country, of course, as black people, there's a sense of loss on so many levels, right? On so many grounds. Of course, loss of life in Marikana, loss of life in everyday, as you spoke about violence, intimate partner violence. So you can take that if you want and speak to it. But before, I wondered, because you also mentioned just now about, how we don't know this history. And this not knowing this history reminds me of a couple of texts, right? I mean, I think actually our own Primesh, who's undoing apartheid, every time he's spoken about it, he's spoken a lot about how perhaps it is apartheid that we need to talk about and not the post-apartheid, right? And that perhaps this is what we don't know very well. Apartheid itself, right? That this is what we actually don't know before we can even actually think about and address the supposedly post. But on top of that, of course, you are speaking to a number of other texts here. I see Ola's work coming through a little bit, right? What is slavery to me? And countless others. I mean, you mentioned now Njabule Ndebele. I also wrote in here thinking he also, he comes through. I mean, he comes through because when you think about the cry of Winnie Mandela, right? There's waiting, right? There's a lot of waiting in that book. There's a lot of anticipating and a husband's arrival. Exactly. So absence is huge in that book because there is a kind of waiting. So I wanted, maybe you want to speak to some of that, some of your references, if you want, lack of a better.
I'll start with your meditation on loss and apartheid. And one of the big issues that I want to bring to the fore with this book is that if we locate all of our social breakdown and maladies to apartheid alone, we are doing ourselves a great disservice, because this is a centuries-old, ongoing onslaught, right? We must move beyond the 1948 moment. It's like this at 10 a.m. this morning, right? There's a longer and deeper history. The founding of diamonds in the 1860s. I mean, I start there, but we know about slavery in the Cape. I guess we should also talk about how when slavery was abolished, there were all sorts of laws that were put into place, like loitering, right, so that they could arrest this newly freed slave labor. Arrest them to do what? To send them north and put them to work in the mines, right? So there's like a clear connection between this slavery moment and the moment of industrial revolution, or the founding of discovery of diamonds in Kimberley, and then, you know, discovery of gold. This is all happening in the 1800s. And great violence is being enacted systemically to create an economic situation that would force black people who prior to that were sovereign and living on their land and owning their cattle. Great violence against the cattle and the land was created to kind of bottleneck this black populace into mine labor. So it's very important and absolutely crucial that, you know, apartheid comes later, and I'm not diminishing the sheer brutality and violence of apartheid. I am saying that we need to go a little bit, not a little bit, we need to go far back to trace and map this violence, this founding of racial capitalism, because at the heart of it is racial capitalism and colonial modernity, and it just does not start in the 40s or in the 1900s. It's got long roots and global ties. So that's one. And the references in this tome, they come about sometimes consciously, sometimes because of my process of writing, they come up unintendedly, based on the fact that I read widely and I'm moved by many texts, from poetry to film to visual arts to texts from Black studies, amazing texts from like the field of Black studies, so generative, so productive. But all of it comes to bear upon this moment of writing. There will be a line that has moved me, and then it will find its way as I am writing. And I guess, you know, as a scholar, then the citational kind of responsibilities come up. That's why in some places I do add footnotes, and in other places you cannot, because it's like an also absent presence of Senzeni Marasela's absolutely powerful work. It is so present in Movement 2, it is so present throughout, but how do I cite her? How do I where do I put the footnote, right? So I think through jazz, this is my modality of working, and I think that I'll locate my practice within an ensemble of other creators who allow me to take a solo when, you know, writing this kind of work, and they are kind of keeping the beat going while I do my exploration, right? And then they are there, and of course I am grooving with them. Yes. I am keeping time, music time with them. We think we've explored this together, but now I must venture off and go fetch something about this.
Yeah.
But it's ours, right?
Yeah.
So it's, for me, that's how all of these references come in. And I have to emphasize that I've been tremendously kind of released from all of the constraints of academic writing by shifting that framing to think through jazz. I teach a course called Thinking Through Jazz, just to sharpen my own kind of jazz as not only modality, but also a way of being, right? And a way of thinking and creating other intellectual cultures that perhaps, you know, if I were to write on mining within the culture of academia, it would be like, you're a literary scholar, you are not a metallurgist, or I'd have to know mining and all of these things, right? Absolutely. So when in using jazz improv as method, it's a way to free yourself or to dislodge
I love that.
Myself from this kind of conventions of and expectations of academic writing, and that's why it came out as poetry, I guess.
Right,
you know, yeah.
right. While reading this, I mean, there's a harsh reality that you paint, but through that there's a mode with which I think, I mean, how you used jazz, and that interesting again how the sonic, right, it reverberates over here in everything, but I maybe we'll park it for later. But there's a real, I don't know if question, but thinking around what it means to heal. I mean, I did say, you know, there will be some questions around affect, but I think that there's something interesting or appealing or desirable around,
Absolutely,
around healing and you know, I mean, because as you said, the work functions on both, you know, on an intellectual level, but it also functions as, you know, there's a hugely personal and affective kind of charge in the work, right? And which then opens up this space to think about such terms as healing, without, you know, sounding you too agey. Thoughts, questions?
to your question on healing, because it's a very big question for me. I'm a healer, so all my work is centers healing, but everything that I am, everything I embark upon, all the projects that I'm doing are all under an umbrella of this idea of recovering subterranean archives. This is a project that is ongoing and unfunded, and then will be funded, and then they'll prove the funding, but it's an ongoing recovering subterranean archives. Recovering is my life's work, and recovering archives that are lost knowledges that are somewhere at large in the world, because Black South Africans are diasporic as hell, and our work is everywhere in the world, so finding that through all kinds of cultural productions, and looking in the subterranean, which is not a place, so underground work, but now through this it became quite literal. I couldn't believe it, because I meant banned work, banned literature, banned records, banned letters, and so forth, and then it took me to the underground. But the process of recovering, recuperating, the etymologies or the meanings there also have to do with healing. When you are moving from illness to health, you're recovering. When you're moving from illness to health, you're recuperating.
Right.
But so it's a strategy, or it's a kind of praxis of healing that has to do with, if you will mind the pun, excavating and unearthing what is in the underground or the subterranean, and bringing it to the fore to kind of fill the holes, fill the gaps, create continuities, because actually this is also intergenerational work that's concerned with creating continuities between the past and the future, with the present as bridge, you know, an ongoing kind of process of addressing archives that are not available to us, and by so doing also bringing knowledge that will affirm us, that create ontological affirmation and fortification to say, no, traditions of poetry have been existing, right? And then we can read about ourselves of this, I'm the first to do what? I'm the first
to do whatever,
like, do you know? If we don't know, if 70% of our everything is out there in the world, you cannot possibly claim that. And so, yeah, recuperation and recovery is about healing. And I write about it, I theorize it as root work. So the method of it is root work, and I think of root work as in three ways. There is root work of the literal roots under the soil, the subterranean, and the underground, the unearthing of that, and the excavation. And I think of it from an indigenous kind of worldview where any form of excavation and any form of unearthing has to happen with ritual. You don't just start digging people up, or these ideas of moving graves because they're building a dam like that. That's sacrilegious, right? So any form of unearthing must happen with appeasing and song and ritual. So that's root work A, that has to do with excavation. And root work B is concerned with the body. You wanted to talk about the body, so I also do somatic work. If you do any kind of somatic work, we speak of the root chakra, which is the base. The base is in your pelvic area, is the root, and that root is connected to your lineage, the ancestral realm, your people, your tribe, the value system you were born into that were cultivated in the home, and so forth. So that's concerned with lineage work, but in my experience, and maybe yours, and especially if you do meditate, the more you expand into the self, I think the infinity that goes that way also goes that way. It becomes more than the lineage, it becomes the collective, it becomes the village, the community, the nation, the continent. It's not limited to just the lineage, but that's embodied. The second root work is embodied, and the third is root work as enchantment. Enchantment, when you say we are doing conjuring work or enchantment work, we can call it witchcraft, but everybody's claiming to do witchcraft, but also it's a loaded term in South Africa. I don't like using that term, but enchantment, which addresses also the way in which colonialism, through its mechanisms of separation, have created such disenchantment. We don't see the magic in the everyday, in nature, in the connection that we are having right now, sitting together. So re-enchanting. What does re-enchanting look like? What does trusting that we are accompanied beings, that we carry knowledges in our bodies, in our DNA, in the exchange with my grandmother? What does re-enchantment through attuning ourselves to the cycles of the moon, attuning ourselves, returning to nature? We've always been connected to that through our totems. I've been investigating my totems. I have the baboon and the elephant on both sides of the family. What does that look like? Baboon has such crazy significance in racist South Africa. What does it mean to move from disenchantment to re-enchantment with this totem that is big for my people, right? So re-enchantment addresses disenchantment with colonialism and coloniality, I guess. So root work, so I was like, you want to talk about healing? I am there with you, because I theorize about it, and I want to explore more of it, because we're not allowed to talk about spirit in academia, but I'm going to do it.
Cool. I don't know if other people want to chime into the conversation, but it's an interesting moment. Saturday, there are many words you said that made me think about the moment we're in, right? It's 30 years of democracy on Saturday. And this was part of how this question around, healing, I'm using it, but really I was thinking about now you mentioned, bridges, which is how the South African Constitution was also kind of conceptualized or theorized, by certain legal scholars. And you talked about recuperation, right? Which is also kind of part of the post-apartheid moment and how we are thinking about moving from, you know, the old dispensation to now. And I wondered if you wanted to shot further into that, because I think there's a nervousness maybe in terms of where to from here, or, you know, where are we going, and then, you know, linked into that, you know, towards the end of the text, you know, movement 5, I think. What is my page? 63. Yeah, so where you talk about the exchange of power from colonialism to apartheid, and this is where I'm bringing in this particular moment, right? And then you say to Codesa, rainbow, right? The violence used to sustain those oppressive white regimes was imported to the era of our governance. The male repressed violence that failed to find its logical conclusion through armed confrontation of the white other exploded onto the female and queer body, which is incredibly powerful words. And so I'm tying a lot of things here, but partly purposefully, but to think about perhaps the current juncture. And I mean, you know, your springboard is sort of Marikana, right? The judgment. And, you know, after that we elected this guy, right? We as a country decide that this guy is great to lead us. I mean, maybe not you, but you know.
Prior to that, we elected a rapist under trial.
True.
Like, we don't have a good track record.
So yeah, can we have a little bit of a moment around this?
Please give me that. I feel like I have to lean forward. I don't really want to talk about the current juncture, but what I can say as somebody who studied and researches social movements and is invested in learning about resistance and revolution, anti-apartheid, anti-colonial, civil rights. It's part of this book. This is what this book is about. I can talk about, for instance, the anti-apartheid movement. It's coalescing with the anti-colonial movements on the continent. So the ANC in exile, for example, waging a war on two fronts, planning an armed confrontation and having another important kind of faction that comprised of a cultural wing, right? If we think of the South African poet laureates, Kgositsile, Mongane Serote, Masisi Kunene, they were all fighting on both these fronts. They were revolutionary figures who carried arms, and they also wrote poetry. Then what happens is that, you know, to that moment, at the height of decolonization and dreams of post-independence in the 60s, to that moment where Césaire talks about the only thing worth beginning is the end of the world, right? So the one faction that is invested in armed struggle interpret that as, you know, collapse this colonial system through armed confrontation. Those who are poets are concerned with ending the world, but also dreaming a new one, imagining what a new world would look like. The poet through the prophetic voice, the poet through the visionary kind of register, dreaming up what that would look like. And all I can say is that that voice has completely been erased and silenced, and the kind of military confrontation that failed to come to pass ended up kind of creating the logics of the new state. And in those logics, it was a matter of replacing the old. You get off this seat so I can sit on it. Not let's completely collapse the social order and see what kind of new state we want to build together, right? So we have the founding fathers of South Africa, as they deemed themselves, the Union of South Africa, being replaced by new founding fathers in 1994, and they just carry on the same kind of individualism and masculinist vision of the country that does not serve everybody. So that, I think that's the only thing I can observe about that. There's no vision, there's no change, there's no dismantling, there's continuity. Just the white skin became black masks, so to say. So yeah, that's all I can say about it. And hence the violence against women continues because they were never regarded in the first place.
Right.
In this new dispensation, there was no ritual or cleansing of all of the bloodshed that has happened. None of it happened. It was just a handover of governance and a continuity of neoliberal capitalist kind of operation.
Yeah. Okay, maybe before I say, the example you just used now made me think of the end of, the supposed end of A Roads Must Fall at UCT, and when the statue was removed. And so the truck came, and it was surrounded by many, and and they put the things, the cranes to lift the statue. And immediately after the statue was gone, the black men who were in the sort of front of The Roads Must Fall literally climbed on the podium where Rhodes was.
Oh, wowza.
And it was fun because I looked at my friend who is at law at UCT now and said, the irony of this is lost on everyone.
Wow, what an image.
Yeah, exactly. And I still want to kind of do something with that image. But
I mean, very quickly, I teach a black feminism course, and I'm always kind of, just for my students to understand the system of hierarchy under colonialism. The white man is over there, then there's the white woman as his other, then there's the black man, sometimes interchangeably with the white, but the black woman is at the bottom. Fanon told us the black man is always looking at the white man with envy. Like, one day,
yes,
I'm going to also occupy that position, And the black woman at the bottom, and that's what black feminism is about, wants to dismantle this whole ladder, wants to dismantle it and create an even grounds of relation, equal grounds of relation. So that is a potent image. Yeah.
Last round, everyone, before we call it. Okay, I think I want to express extreme gratitude for your presence here, not only for sharing your work, but also for bringing an otherwise to the academic and helping us think with jazz, as you were saying, helping us think with the poetics, and helping us think that the academic space, we must force it to think otherwise, right? And that there are other modes, and I think, of course, you're most welcome at the Yatsiba labs, because we here are interested and value and are really invested in thinking with other modes, and not just the kinds of normative academic ways of writing, thinking, and being. And so I want to say really, 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 really thank you for coming, and you are most welcome to come again. I'm happy to have this conversation, because I think we just schemed. We just did like the top notes, and there's so much more that we could do and think about through your work. And I mean, as I said, I have questions within questions within questions. Thank you everybody for coming, and can we give Uhuru a round of applause for